radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network.
All right, welcome. How you doing? I'm doing pretty good. I'm doing a little better. It's Fade to Black. Today is Thursday, April 23rd, 2026. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Let's do this, man. Yeah, this week, 2,300 shows. That's a pretty good milestone we got here. I don't know how we did it, but we did. 2,300 shows. Show number 2,300 was on Monday. We have been celebrating all week this week. Monday night, we had Dr. Scott Kolbaba in here. Absolutely great conversation, physicians and their NDEs and their stories. And Tuesday night, Isaac Arthur, physicist, was here from Artemis to the Stars. Another incredible conversation. Last night, Richard Dolan was here. Dolan's latest thoughts. And we're going to wrap up this celebratory week tonight with the one and only William Henry. Yeah, very excited about this. The new book, The Psychedelic Christ, is the subject. And this is going to be an amazing conversation. It's always great when William is here and when I get a chance to hang out with William and do events and everything. He is just, he's a lot of knowledge, but he's also a bright ray of sunshine. And I think he knows that by now. I remind him of it too much. He glows. My next event coming up is the Contact Modalities Expo. This is next week, May 1st through the 3rd. In Delavan, Wisconsin, at the Lake Lawn Resort. World-class, truly world-class resort. And if you haven't got your tickets or if you need info, go to Contact Modalities Expo. That's XPO, contactmodalitiesexpo.com. The links are below on our website, throughout social media. I'll see you next week in the heart of the Midwest, right there, just north of Chicago, on the border, right there where I was born. Yeah, it's where it all started. It's where it all started for me. When I hit the stage next week, I've got a bunch of things that I'm doing, but I'm gonna open the show up with the presentation. And William's listening right now. He's backstage, so I'm gonna say this. When I say it's where it all started, there was a very strange thing that occurred there for me for about a year. And I was at the time 8 years old. And this is what is, I was 8. I don't remember for almost a year sleeping. I don't remember being in my bedroom. I don't remember, we had 2 bunk beds in there. Me, my brother Mike, my brother Greg, all slept in one room on 2 bunk beds. I don't even know which bed was mine. I don't remember being in that bed. I don't remember getting up in the morning and going to school. It's gone. Right after that, I went to go live with my father. My parents were divorced. From that point forward until today, I remember every bed that I've ever slept in. Every bedroom, everything, it's completely in focus in there. Not there, not in Waukegan. Isn't that strange? I remember before that, when I was younger, something strange about that part of the world. And when I say it started me on my journey, I've got question marks as to why. I'm going to ask William about that tonight. William Henry is our guest. The new book, The Psychedelic Christ, is out. I believe it's out. William, nod. Is it out? It's out. William says yes, Jimmy, you can say that. And we're going to be talking about psychedelics tonight. Yeah, we're going to do all of that. We're going to go top to bottom. We're going to go to and fro, hither and thither. And calling them sacred tools, right? A key, a sacred key. All of this bringing on a transformation. Today, we can apply science and medicine to it as well, which is what the world is doing. But what's the real story? We're going to talk about all of that tonight with William. He's based out of Nashville. You're still in Nashville, right, William? You're still in that? He said sort of. He signed me for backstage. Of course, Ancient Aliens, on tour, and everything else about William is extraordinary. All of his books, which I have, are an amazing read. And let's just go straight to it. I could read his entire bio and take away from the show. But William, I'm not going to do that, my friend. I'm not going to do that. Is there something you want me to mention?
No, but it's so good to see you, Jimmy. Thank you for having me on this evening.
There was something. What is it that you wanted me to mention?
Well, I'm based in Phoenix now.
You're not in Nashville.
No, no longer in Nashville. Been in Phoenix since December 2022.
See, not only did I not know that, but I have always associated Nashville with you.
Mm-hmm. I was there for 40 years. I mean,
yeah. No, I didn't know. No.
Yeah.
So we're neighbors?
We're neighbors. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. No, I didn't. We see each other all the time. And it's obvious that we talk about other things. But no, I didn't know you were in Phoenix. What part?
Paradise Valley. It's next to Camelback Mountain.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's my spot.
Cool.
That's my spot. What is it? Lincoln Boulevard. All right.
Lincoln. Yep.
Lincoln, 32nd Street, T-Bones at Lincoln, right there at the base of the mountain. That's my hood, man. That's my hood. Paradise Valley.
44th and Stanford.
Yeah. Dude, I could do that in my sleep. Okay. We're going to move on, but I'm going to tell you something trippy about your neighborhood.
Okay.
Can't believe you said 44th. Are you ready? Do you remember Timothy Good's book, Above Top Secret?
Sure. Yeah.
Oh, everybody does, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do you have it?
I have it somewhere. I think it's in storage, actually.
Okay. There is, that's a collection of documents.
Sure.
There's a story in there. And I was working in Phoenix. I live in LA, but I was traveling to Phoenix every other week for work in the music industry.
Uh-huh.
And I'm reading Timothy's book. This is in the early 90s. And there was a saucer crash retrieval in Cave Creek.
No way.
Next to Camelback Mountain.
Wow.
Are you ready? It gets better. Are you ready? On Scottsdale Road.
Oh my gosh.
Right. So I'm reading 1958. So I'm reading the whole thing in LA, and I'm going back out. I'm working at Camelback Mountain at a house up there. Don't need to go into that. A celebrity, and I said, man, check this article, and he reads it and he goes, oh, that's right around the corner. Let's go. I said, let's go. So we went to the streets from Timothy Good's book, went to the intersection. It's a parking lot. Yeah. They paved it over.
Oh, man. Wow.
Yeah. Right there, man. Scottsdale Road and Camelback Mountain and Cave Creek.
Incredible.
Isn't that nuts? Yeah. So get the book and you'll have to drive out there.
Right on.
It'll take you 3 minutes from where you're at. Okay. So there's a thing that I do want to bring up with you, and that I'm not comfortable with at this point. And I don't know if I'll ever be comfortable or if I'll talk about it in public, but that's David Wilcock and that tragedy and It's all officially announced and everything else from the Boulder coroner and the sheriff's department out there, and it's a dark place for this community to have to go through something like this. You knew David well. Is there anything that you would like to say, or you would like the world to know?
I just to honor the light that David represented. People, they don't really sometimes realize that behind a voice, behind the personages, behind the charisma, is a human being that is the same as every other human being, going through challenges, going through life, making choices, some of them good, some of them not so good, and having to then regroup and try to just live the best possible life. And David was one who took on a huge mantle. I know a bit about that mantle, having studied similar material that David has spoken of. It's like when you grab a hold of that serpent of wisdom, it can bring challenges. And David held that light for so long. And I was very deeply saddened to watch his decline over the past few years, and often thought about reaching out and saying, David, what can I do? Kind of a thing. And I regret that I didn't do that, but I know he's in a much better place now. His legacy is clearly established. It's well defined. It will long last many other researchers in this time. And I'm just so proud of my association with him, the work that he did on Ancient Aliens, and other places that we worked together. He was just always a fun guy. You always had to remember, when I think of David in his personality, I think of jazz music. Jazz doesn't start out on key. It finds its way around to the key. So David often would come out of left field and then get into the center, hit the right note, sort of a thing. And that was just his kind of quirky personality. And that's something I'll always treasure about him.
Well said. Well said. We'll leave that right there. I do. I'll just throw something on top of that. You, David, and we did a few panels together over the years that I hosted.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I really enjoyed, because those panels that we did together were ginormous. We're talking about thousands of people that were sitting in front of us, right?
Yeah, right.
Big stuff.
Yeah.
And when David spoke, when you have a crowd that big, there's always murmuring. You hear people. It's a live room, right? You hear the audience. Dave, when he leaned into that mic, place, you could hear a pin drop.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
They just and the way that he laid it out, I would sit back and just like, wow, okay, that's how you do it, right? That's how you do it right there. Yeah, okay. Let's move on.
I just want to mention too, coming off the death of Nick Pope, that was a real tough one for me.
You know what? I last night with Dolan did the same thing, right? Mm-hmm. We talked about David for a minute, mm-hmm. and then talked about Nick Pope, and I was thinking about, man, I don't want to do this shit. I don't, but you and I, okay, all right, let's talk about Nick for a second.
Sure.
You and I, a couple of weeks ago, were sitting face to face. We were in a green room together, mm-hmm. and you and I were sitting there face to face, alone, and talking about Nick.
Mm-hmm.
And we shared a couple of stories, but and I want you to share a story. One of the one thing that you and I both wanted to talk about Nick was his sense of humor.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And you and I were sitting there going back, and I just thought that you said it earlier about David. You see the front face of somebody, right? Nick's on Fox every night, and he's this, or Ancient, and his presence was so great and such a good representation for the community that he stood up for. Right. He stood up for this community.
Yeah.
And fought that. It was extraordinary. Okay. But that's what the people saw.
Yeah.
The Nick that you and I knew, that was a cool dude, man.
Very.
That
Yeah.
was a funny, cool dude that lived life his way.
Hmm. Truly. We did 100 of these Ancient Aliens live shows. And so Nick and I became really close because we'd have breakfast together almost every morning, and we'd travel, and then we'd sit next together on stage. And it got to the point where we just started finding all these little gags during the show. And at some point it just kicked in. All Nick had to do is look at me a certain way, and I just had to choke down a big laugh. And he just made it so much fun. But I also like to tell the story. I had known Nick for 15 years or so. And then again, when Ancient Aliens Live happened, I really got to know him, when you're traveling 300 miles a day or whatever, and doing all this road tripping together. And I think we arrived in Pittsburgh one early morning, and we flew in, and we're coming down the escalator, and there were a whole bunch of political protesters that were there at the airport. There was like 100 of these people, 75 to 100 with TV cameras. Nick comes down the escalator, and he goes right into him, gives him a piece of his mind. I'm like, Nick, man, let it go, And we walk over to baggage claim. The next thing I know, there goes Nick right back at him. And it took me 2 seconds to realize I got to go back up my friend. And that's when I really realized he's not just a coworker or somebody I work with. He's my friend, and the odds weren't going to be good getting in there. And fortunately, the police had arrived and diffused the situation. But the way he looked at me when we were walking back to baggage claim just kind of told the whole story. It's like, we're friends,
Right.
We got each other. And I just always appreciated his sense of humor, his sensibility, his intelligence, his class too. He just had this way about him where he was so gentle and just so considered in what he said.
Yeah. Again, so well said. I remember, I mentioned this briefly last night with Dolan. You and I, Nick, and it was Childress. So I think I'm leaving somebody out. Maybe Jason Martell. Okay, so I'm hosting this thing with the four of us, and before we started, the four of us, or there was five of us, we were all talking, and I joked with Nick about how he said issues. You remember that, right? We got up on stage, and every time Nick spoke and said issues, he'd look at me like that was him. He didn't break stride. He always had that deadpan face with his humor,
right,
and he pulled it off. Us, right? You and Childress, we got the joke. And it was an inside joke for us, and Nick just made sure that he said it loud and clear. So the issues are, love that guy, man.
Yeah.
Love that guy. All right. Rest in peace, both of them.
For sure.
And
prayers for them and their families, for sure.
You know what I learned from Nick, though? And then we'll move on. Life is short. Do it your way.
Yeah.
Don't think about, don't get taken off your bliss or whatever it is. Stay over the target and do your thing.
Right.
Nick did that.
Yeah.
Truly lived life by his own rules.
Yeah.
And if there's something that anybody could walk away from Nick Pope, is that live life your own way.
Mm-hmm.
Live life your own way. Why this book? And can I say this? Your information, not only religiously and about spirituality, and your take on deep history and applying this is something that you've been laser focused on for a very long time, hasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, especially the psychedelic area is something I've been collecting books on for over 20 years. I remember being in Los Angeles, like year 2000, and I was talking about Egyptian resurrection technology. I call it the Osiris device. It's at Abydos. It looks like something out of Tesla's research papers. And I'm speaking about it and noticing that it has this sort of mushroom shaped top to it. And there's a famous mycologist, mushroom expert in my audience, and he's laughing at me. He goes, William, that is a mushroom. When are you going to wake up and realize everything you're talking about is a mushroom? And I'm thinking, oh man, what do you mean it's a mushroom? It's clearly some sort of Tesla-like technology. But because of the gravitas of the mycologist, I had to file it away and consider it. And so over the next 20 years or so, I'm collecting a library about psychedelics in the ancient world and recognizing it's a whole part of the story, but it's a little bit on the fringe for me until 2022, when I had come to a place in my life where I felt almost like I was a dolphin in an aquarium. I had been reading about all these higher consciousness experiences. The ancients were using these substances and these molecules and these medicines. And I'm realizing—
Is that me or you?
I think that's me. I'm so sorry. I'm realizing that this is a part of the whole experience. And all of a sudden it's time for me to try it myself. And that it was a total life changer, a total game changer for me. And it took me out of the realm of just thinking about what this experience might be like into actually breaking through the glass and getting out there and swimming in the cosmic ocean. And it was truly, truly a blessing for me.
How does that change? Well, it changes a lot of things, of course, but how does that change your overall view of one that society looks at this as recreational and illegal and jail time and all of that?
I know.
To a whole nother perspective.
Yeah.
How does it change your perception?
Well, completely, because I mean, we do have a cultural bias, a political bias that's changing now. But back then, for thousands of years, they didn't have an FDA breathing down their neck telling them what they could and could not do with their consciousness. They were utilizing God's gift to this planet in terms of some of these plants and plant medicines that are designed to interface with our neurosecretory system, with our electrical system, with our nervous system, and to awaken us, heal us, awaken us, connect us to other realms. So, it's unfortunate that we had that dip in the 1960s. You have a revival you have the synthesizing of LSD, soon followed by the synthesizing of MDMA. People are using it for great benefit. The CIA decides it's going to start dosing people in Berkeley without their knowledge and really messing up a generation with their experiments. And then we have this bias that develops. We get into the Reagan era with the war on drugs and all of that nonsense, really, when you look back at it. And now we're finally into an era where we're recognizing the medicinal properties of these substances. And fortunately, the Trump administration has made a declarative move within the past week or so that it's time to open up fast track research on psilocybin, ibogaine, MDMA for PTSD, especially for soldiers. And it's going to have a dramatic impact on our society. It's going to not only open our heart, it's going to open our consciousness, and it's going to be a true pathway forward for millions upon millions of people.
Going back into deep history, excuse me. Sorry about that. Going back into deep history, specifically Egypt. I know that you were standing off the side of the stage when I spoke briefly a couple of weeks ago. And I had said, and I caught myself too, William. I'm like, I can't talk about Egypt. William Henry's standing right there watching me. I can't do that. Not with authority. But I did say a few things, and I want to address this.
Sure.
You just touched upon it. The one of the key aspects to Egypt and consciousness and understanding ourselves is overlooked. And that is this. Forever in Egypt, you had one perfect day after another. Right? Mm-hmm. Sun comes up, no clouds in the sky, sun goes down. It's another beautiful day, right? No hurricanes, no volcanoes, right? Every day was just like the next and the last, and for thousands of years.
Yeah.
So what does that enable you to do? It enables you to learn, because you're not involved with the struggle. The Nile is you've got more food than you can eat, right? You've got it's just another perfect. What are you going to do today? I don't know. What are you going to do? I don't know, man. It's another perfect day though. Let's figure something out. And you do that for thousands and thousands of years, and you are self-aware. You understand. Do you dig where I'm going with this? Where they had all of the time to get it figured out, didn't they?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, Jimmy, I'd been to Egypt 30 times before I had a psychedelic awakening, and I had made notes in the past. I mean, you know how overwhelming it is to go into an Egyptian temple and all of the scenes. But something I had started to draw my attention was the exchange that was going on between the pharaoh or the queen and one of the deities. It could be Hathor, Isis, or Patah. And I started noticing that they've always got this jar in their hand. And they're either offering it to one of the deities or receiving it from a deity, and they're surrounded by these plants. And nobody ever talked about that. And I just clicked on that imagery. I said, well, okay, what's in that jar? And it turns out they're called new jars. It's spelled N-U, new jars. And they say they contain wine, but they also describe the contents as liquid light. And it was very, very clear that because of the profundity of this symbolism, it's everywhere. There are thousands of these depictions of them offering these jars to these gods. And I realized finally the contents of that jar was a psychedelic potion that enabled them to connect with the divine beings. Those gods weren't walking around in physical flesh and blood form. They were having a sip of this psychedelic brew and connecting with these deities in the hyper realm, in the psychedelic space, if you will. And they're literally thanking them for offering this sacrament so that they could commune with these beings. And that completely changed my conception of Egypt and what was happening, what they were in fact documenting on the temple walls. They're telling us exactly how they enhanced their consciousness, connecting with these divine beings, and then probably ultimately used that same technology to build the pyramids and all the other wondrous temples that we find in Egypt.
I find that totally extraordinary. And I am going to bring up, since I'm going to bring up an image of the Narmer palette.
Oh, great. Okay.
And as I do this, oh, by the way, I want to say this really quick. So during sound check, I always ask all of my guests the same question because I need them to talk. And so I ask everybody, what kind of shoes do you have? I just need them to talk. So I asked what William goes, sandals.
Right.
I go, well, that's appropriate for the psychedelic Christ tonight, isn't it? And but to that end, there's also a connection to the Narmer palette. All right. So I'm going to bring this up in a way that I can modify it while I talk to you. Okay. And I can do that here. Okay. So Narmer palette. What's interesting about the Narmer palette is not Narmer. Okay. So this is Narmer on the left, everybody, with the Upper Egypt crown.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not what's important here. What's important is the little dude next to Narmer. Why is this important? Oh, is this not? Oh, hold on a minute, man. I did it wrong, William.
That's all right.
Just hold on. I did this wrong. I need to do it like this. I'm going to do it like this. I'm going to do it like this. And I'm going to go like this. And then I'm going to go like this. Now I got him. Okay. So I have the technology. Okay. So this little dude here, right? This little guy, what is he holding?
Well, he's got his jar in his hand or his bucket, right?
He's got Narmer's sandals.
And Narmer's sandals. Yeah, he's entering into a holy space. Yeah. He's taking his sandals off. Yeah.
Yep. Narmer's barefoot. and he's running behind him,
Mhm.
right? And he's got Narmer's sandals.
Mhm.
But what, and that's pretty cool, right? There they are. That's not it's this right here.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not only that, but when you look at Narmer's crown, all the guides say, oh, that they call that the bowling pin that he's wearing, or the champagne crown. It's actually, in the perception of some, a dried psilocybin mushroom. And you see dried psilocybin mushrooms in numerous places on the temple walls in Egypt. They're telling us what they were actually doing. And so if you compared that crown to a dried psilocybin mushroom, it's a pretty striking comparison. And when you think about it, I mean, they're telling us that he's got this expanded crown chakra, that his consciousness extends beyond his mortal being. And the mushroom would then explain how he's able to access these higher states of consciousness.
Yeah, the Narmer palette is more important than people realize. This is one of the most extraordinary artifacts that's ever been discovered. 3200 BC.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And now, what is crazy about this, aside from the sandals and the pot of drugs that this guy is holding, or whatever he's got, is this. That right there.
Yeah.
That says Narmer in hieroglyphics.
Yeah.
That's a hieroglyph. And at 3200 BC. So if we have, and that's a fish and a chisel, everybody. So you see that. And this is a Sirach, which is the symbol of a royal home or palace.
Mm-hmm.
See, William, I've learned so much from you.
So
I stole
cool.
all of this. I stole all of this from William. But anyway, but now that is a fully formed written language at 3200 BC. How do we know that this is Narmer? Well, it says Narmer.
Yeah.
That's what that says.
Yeah.
And it's the symbol of the palace. It's on the front and the back. This is the back. There it is again.
Yeah.
And to have so if they had a fully formed written language at 3200 BC, what did they have before this?
Yeah, exactly.
How long was this language developed? This wasn't the first. The carver of the Narmer palette didn't invent hieroglyphs.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
No, it was already there. And one last thing before we move on. Oh, there's two things. But if you look at Narmer here, that pose, this style was the blueprint and didn't change for the rest of Egypt. That's it.
Yeah.
So how long was this this wasn't just created for the first time on this palette.
Mm-hmm.
How long was this beforehand? And one last thing about the Narmer palette. One last thing is here we have Hathor, right here, right?
And up above too.
Up above. But it's crazy. So what's going on here? He's got a fish hook in his nose.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's nuts. That's the Narmer palette. Okay, so I bring that up because you're right about that. The jars were everywhere.
Yeah.
Including this, which may be the first historical. This is like the New York Times in 3200 BC, right? This is telling the whole story of Upper and Lower Egypt and everything. And what is clearly on here is the jar being held by somebody from the administration. I would say this is a pretty important figure walking behind Narmer.
Yeah. You know, and what's interesting too, what's coming to mind is the time period here. I mean, there's a lot we could get into here with Narmer being the bull man and the Pleiades connection and so forth. But that jar could well be one of the a forerunner of the new jars. And shout out here to Brian Muruescu, who wrote the book The Immortality Key. He rooted out the research of I think it's Patrick McGovern at Penn. He died a couple of years ago, but he was an archaeochemist. And at Abydos, at this same time period, around 3200 BC, 3000 BC, one of the first pharaohs is buried at Abydos with his wooden boat, his ship of eternity. And he has 300 wine jars that are buried with him. And McGovern, or it was Brian Coe at MIT, one or the other, decided to test the contents of those wine jars. And what they found out is that the wine was psychotropic. It was hallucinogenic. And not only that, but the grapes from which it were grown and the location where the clay came from for the jars was the land of Canaan, where the Anunnaki lived and were known to possess the grapes of the promised land. This is Jesus's backyard. They call it the Napa of the ancient world. And they exported this wine to Abydos. And this Pharaoh wanted to have 300 jars of this psychedelic wine buried with him so that he could take it on his journey into the afterlife. That tells you the importance of the psychotropics to them and the connection between the earthly life and perhaps even the afterlife as well.
You know what? Again, I keep going back to this point, but people need to absorb this. We're talking about 3200 BC. Yeah. When the rest of academia and historians and anthropologists want us to believe that it was just Stone Age man running around in leopard skins.
Right. Or diapers.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. In diapers and with no intelligence and digging in the ground and digging in the dirt for food, when clearly that's not the case.
Exactly.
They were completely upright.
Yeah. And from our perspective, they had gone through the cataclysm, 10,000 BC, and went through a full period of 7,000 years where not a lot was happening. And then 3100 BC, it's like an alarm goes off, and suddenly it's time to restart civilization. You get the first dynasty in Egypt, you have the start of the Mayan calendar, you have Krishna on Earth in India. And it was like time for humanity to start again.
How does I'm trying to get to the next word. How does the recipe for such things come to be? We don't have laboratories or chemists or, right?
Yeah.
But yet the knowledge came from somewhere, didn't it?
Yeah. And some maintain it came from the plants themselves, that they became our teachers. The mushroom is cited as a teacher. Terence McKenna was one of the real advocates for this. And the ayahuasca brew came from the plants itself as a teacher. And I think it's quite possible that even some of these plants were brought here by higher intelligences. The Watcher Angels, for example, are known to have been herbologists. They brought herbs with them, possibly cannabis, and knew of the properties of cannabis and how it could unlock what we now call the endocannabinoid system, which we didn't even know about until 1982, till Israeli scientists discovered it, that cannabis acts as like a key that unlocks this whole healing system and pain reduction system within us. And they marvel, how is it possible that a plant can match human DNA and unlock these wondrous capabilities? And whoever figured out that was possible? Well, it's even possible that the Watcher Angels were the ones that taught people about the lock and key connection with cannabis.
I picture this all the time. Okay, who licked the first toad?
Right.
I know. How does that happen unless you're told?
Yeah. I mean, an example of that, you speak of the toad medicine, Bufo is a psychedelic. And you look at a scene at Abydos, there's a beautiful scene of Patah, the god who fashioned the human body, sitting on a feathered ascension throne. And King Seti is kneeling before him in the sycamore tree of life, or the Aished tree of life. And he's got his palm out before Patah. And Patah is literally writing the codes of the hundreds, secrets of the hundreds of thousands of years into the palm of his hand. And you look at the staff that represents the symbol for those secrets of the 100,000 years, and there's a toad at the very bottom of it. And at first glance, over years and years, you think, there's just a toad there. Then when you know the psychedelic key, you recognize they're telling us exactly how SETI expanded his consciousness, which is what the tree of life represents, and was able to perceive Patah, who is this other dimensional being.
Patah, I like all the gods, by the way, all of them, big or small. And there's a lot of them.
Yeah.
But lately, I've been a Patah guy.
Me too.
Patah doesn't get the stage, like others do. Patah, I've got a big Patah statue in my family.
Oh, beautiful. Oh,
yeah, man, just standing with the oh man.
Yeah.
Patah. Can we stop on Patah for a second? Most have never heard about Patah.
Okay.
Tell us about Patah.
So in the Egyptian tradition, Patah is associated with Sirius, the star Sirius, as is Isis. But they tell us that he manifested out of the blue, like he just could appear, right, out of nowhere. And he's portrayed typically with a blue skull cap. He wears a feathered garment that covers his whole body, and he holds the Uaz scepter in his hand, or the combined Uaz, Ankh, and Jed symbol. And in Egyptian mythology, if you look him up in the Egyptian hieroglyphic dictionary, Budge's classic dictionary, he says that Patah was a blacksmith, a craftsman, and fashioner of the bodies of men. And when you look at his hieroglyph, it's a double helix. Egyptologists say, oh no, that's just a string, because the ancient Egyptians knew nothing about genetics. But here's the god, they say, that fashioned the human body with what appears to be a double helix in his hieroglyph, at least to me. And you ask, well, okay, is he similar to like Enki in the Sumerian tradition? And the answer is yes, they're considered to be interchangeable. They did the same things. They're connected with genetics, they're connected with advancing the human race. But in the case of Patah, they tell us directly, I think, in his hieroglyph, why he tweaked human DNA. And when you look at that hieroglyph, you see that there is a compass and a square. There's a square representing earth and all the elements, earth, air, fire, and water, maybe even the 4 letters of our DNA code. And there's also a semicircle representing the compass. And that's like an early form of like the Masonic imagery of circling the square or squaring the circle, uniting heaven and earth. And that to me suggests the purpose for why Patah manifested on earth, tweaked human DNA. And what you discover is that he's really the father of the ancient Egyptian resurrection mysteries at Saqqara. The entire site is devoted to Patah. The sons of Patah are well known as a lineage of priests and prophets that included Imhotep, who built the step pyramid at Saqqara, included Moses, included Jesus, Asclepius in the Greek tradition. For 3,000 years, there's this whole lineage of the sons of Patah, and they're always considered to be physicians of the soul, always connected with healing, with the advancement of the human race, and ultimately with the transformation of the human race into a form capable of traveling through what we think of as stargates and wormholes.
And one last thing, and then we'll get to Jesus, everybody, I promise. but Hecapatah. Okay, so you have that city, it's named after Patah, Hecapatah, and that eventually the etymology behind that, and when the Greeks came in, that's where the name Egypt actually came from.
Exactly. It's so cool.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's he's such an important god. And like I said, I've got a statue and he's become, I like them all. There's something about Patah, man. I just identify, I don't know. Maybe I need to go see Sarah Breskman Cosme and do a life regression and see what's going on there. See what's going on. Okay, so how do we get all of this, so fun to talk about, into a book? The Psychedelic Jesus. How do we start from there and then end up with, I've got to write this book?
Okay. Well, actually, it started with me with the Ark of the Covenant.
Okay.
There's two paths that researchers follow as regards to the Ark. The more traditional path is that the Ark is a golden box. It's a container that held the tablets of the Ten Commandments. And they layer on this that perhaps it was radioactive, perhaps it was a capacitor, perhaps it was some sort of a technology. Okay. But there is a Jewish legend that precedes most of the work on the Ark of the Covenant that says originally the Ark had a number of components beyond the tablets of the law. It contained a flask of manna, this hallucinogenic star food that Moses and the Israelites ate for 40 years while wandering in the wilderness. The rod of Aaron, a miracle producing rod that is passed along. Moses uses it to part the Red Sea. Jesus later in early Christian art uses it to perform miracles. A cruse of anointing oil was contained in the ark that could, when applied to the human body, could dissolve it into an energetic essence until it manifested as a being manifesting or radiating rainbow colored light. This is what happened with Enoch in the book of Enoch, when the Archangel Michael anointed Enoch. And then there were the tablets. What most Ark researchers either don't know or ignore are these other components. But I locked onto those components and realized that this is an integral part of the whole messianic story in Christianity, and it all originates in Egypt. And so I just had this fascination with all of the components, but never really got around to really studying the manna. And that's when I started pulling on that thread. And where it led me, and this is the reason why I wrote the book, is that there was the messianic expectation that when the Messiah appears in Jesus's time, he will recover the complete Ark of the Covenant, not I call it the decoy, the box with the tablets. That to me is the decoy, because it's like I've got a iMac computer in front of me. And if, let's say a few hundred years from now, we no longer use these things, but someone recovers it and they show this beautiful screen. Here's the iMac. And people go, oh yeah, that's the iMac for sure. That's what they say. But then there's a guy like me that digs up a manual that says, oh no, there was a mouse, there was a keyboard that worked with it, there was a power cord, there was some software with it. This is a completely different kettle of fish now, right? And this is the comparison with the traditional view of the Ark. It's just the screen. No, it's a lot more. And in the Jewish tradition, they would identify the Messiah because he would retrieve the complete ark that had been lost around 600 BC. And so when Jesus turns up and he feeds the 5,000 with a single loaf of bread, and they go into this ecstatic state of joy and ecstasy, like they're microdosing, I'm realizing, okay, the Jewish elite went nuts after this moment, because they knew that if he's producing the manna, he's probably also got the rest of the Ark of the Covenant too. And that's going to spell trouble for the Jewish high priest, because they were considered to be imposters. They didn't have the real Ark of the Covenant. It was lost. They had the decoy, and they're selling the decoy as the real thing. And they're prohibiting people from utilizing the original sacrament because they didn't have it. According to the Ark testimony, there was a small quantity called an omer of this manna that was placed in the ark, and the high priest would go into the Holy of Holies of Solomon's temple annually, once a year, take a little piece of this and see God. But none of the ordinary people were allowed access to that experience until Jesus comes along and feeds the 5,000 with a single loaf of this manna, and then starts speaking very directly about this as the true food from heaven, calling it the Son of Man. And then when you would eat this edible, suddenly you would see another interpretation of the Son of Man. The heavens would open and you'd see a ladder ascending and descending, with angels ascending and descending upon the Son of Man. And you realize there's a whole missing component or piece to the Christian story.
I have a bad habit of interrupting you, William. I apologize for that, because you make me think. Okay. And I have to stop you because I need more information from you.
Sure.
Is this similar to, is this like a Timothy Leary moment, right? Where you are opening up the minds to many, and they are, I'm not playing around with this, they are now exposed to another dimension where they have used words like heaven and, but
Yeah.
is that the moment that you are describing here?
Yeah, it really is, Jimmy. And another word, when they ate this edible, the disciples now could perceive the glory of the Lord. This was more than just a presence. This was a visible light that was emitted by Jesus. They referred to it as glory, and glory means to glow rays. And in traditional Christian art, when they portray the glory of the Lord, he's enfolded within this rainbow-colored light. And this is a description that matches what Ezekiel saw, for example, when he saw the wheels within wheels, and he saw the throne, and he saw a luminous humanoid figure on that throne amidst the wheels within wheels. In my book, I talk about Ezekiel's experience as a DMT experience, a dimethyltryptamine experience, that they're utilizing these substances that awaken the consciousness so they can perceive beyond ordinary ability. And the purpose of these substances, whether it be DMT in the ancient world, or psilocybin, or amanita muscaria mushrooms, or acacia, or blue lotus, or Syrian rue, there's a whole host of these natural herbs that they were using on a routine basis for thousands of years before the time of Jesus. The purpose was to act as a catalyst, to be able to open up the head, open up our consciousness so that we could perceive beyond the material world and then connect with the divine realm.
So the kingdom of God, man, I better not get struck by lightning. It's because it's just going to confirm everything for you, Mr. William Henry. The kingdom of God, I have always, and the world, it's everything.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
That sounds like DMT to me.
Well, yeah, and it's accessible. We go into DMT experiences in our dream world. We access these other realities. We know that these molecules are produced endogenously by our pineal gland, which is a chemical manufacturing plant of these sacred oils and secretions. Some of them put us to sleep. Some of them heal us. Some of them open gateways into other worlds. And what has happened historically is that while they were using these substances for thousands of years before the time of Jesus, in fact, it wouldn't be unusual that he was using them. What would be unusual is if he didn't use them, right? They're understanding that these are gifts from our Creator. These are tools. These are catalysts that are meant to awaken us so that we can perceive and then commune with that divine realm.
When I speak of such things, oh, by the way, okay, so I haven't done mushrooms in 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't done anything like that in 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
DMT, I've been very public about it. I've done it 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
And what if I came away with something? It's not a drug.
No.
Okay, it's not.
That's our cultural bias.
It's cultural bias. It's not a drug.
No.
It doesn't act like a drug. It doesn't do it. It doesn't even. It doesn't have time to enter your bloodstream and go through your lungs and do it. No, it's right. Like, so it's a key.
Exactly.
It's a tool.
Yes. Precisely.
Right. Now I'm asking you, when I say, am I making a mistake in describing it that way to people?
No,
because that's my take.
Yeah. It's a key. It's a tool. It's a sacrament. It's meant to be a sacred experience. It was never meant to be a party type of experience. We turned it into that in some cases in our culture, but now we're reverting back to recognizing its sacredness and creating circumstances where people can have this communion in a proper way. But no, you're absolutely right, Jimmy. It's always been intended as as a catalyst, as a tool to connect us with the higher realms.
There's a trend right now. Are you familiar with, and this has to do with spirituality and religion, it's connected, people getting kicked out of DMT world and can't go back. Have you heard about this?
No,
Have you heard about it?
No.
Okay, check this out. No matter how much you try to do, you can't go in. You're sober. And this is why the people that did it for sport. Okay. All right. So you do it for sport and you're cruising around and some spirit entity, some guide comes up to you and says, "Hey, what's going on?" And you say, "No, I'm just cruising through with my friends, checking it out." You're out. You can't go back.
Yeah.
You cannot go back.
Mhm.
You have to treat it just like you said, right? This is special and intention and purpose and everything else. That's what it's about.
Yeah.
It wasn't meant for you and your fraternity brothers, right? You know what I mean? To go out for a weekend and get your yayas on. That's not the case here, is it?
No, not at all. You take me back to my first DMT experience. There's a smokable form of DMT called changa. It's an herb, and it was my first psychedelic experience. And
you went balls out the first time. Okay, for everybody, just so you understand, changa, it's liquefied DMT that's soaked into some herbs, and then it's like, so you can burn it like tobacco or wheat or whatever, and that's changa. But it can be very direct.
Yeah,
a very big master key.
Yeah, within 30 seconds, the veil opens up, and I find myself in an Egyptian temple. I thought it was the Temple of Hathor at Dendera, but it was so much larger and more beautiful. And I'm thinking at the time, oh, this is what they mean. They always say the Egyptian temples are copies of heavenly originals. And I thought that the originals might have been on like another planet or something, but no, it's in the consciousness realm. And I'm looking around at this incredibly beautiful place, and I see this giant ascension throne. I know it's an ascension throne because I study them. And in the earthly temples in Egypt, these thrones have feathers on them. They're feathered because they fly, type of a thing. This is a vehicle for coming and going. But this one's full of stars. And I thought, oh my gosh, of course it's full of stars. These thrones would be made of stars or star stuff. And there's a mermaid tail on that throne, gently kind of waving, beautiful purple iridescent.
I love it.
And a female voice. And she goes, "William, your work with the starboats in Egypt is beautiful." And I'm like, wow, okay, let me process this. I'm talking with a mermaid, and she knows about my interest in the arc of the millions of years and how I've compared it to a wormhole and all of this thing. And she goes, "No, it's really beautiful." And then she goes, "You know that image, that photo you're always trying to take in the Cairo Museum? There was a sarcophagus. It belonged to Marin Patah. And it showed this guy on the boat striding with a staff in his hand and a star in his other hand. And I could not get into the sarcophagus to get up and underneath to take this picture, but I did the best I can." And she goes, "Yeah, you know that photo?" I'm like, "Yeah, and how do you know about that?" And she goes, "That's you." And I'm like, "Yeah, I know. I've studied this my whole life." She goes, "No, William, that's you." And from that, I developed my whole Star Walker program. I had written about the Star Walkers in my book, in my 2006 book, Star Walkers and the Dimension of the Blessed. But as a result of that experience, I was inspired to go back and really get a handle and retrieve the whole Star Walker mythology from ancient Egypt and how they were using these substances to connect with the divine realm, to heal the body, to travel into the stars, and to literally be in communion with the divine beings.
the audience right now is listening to you going, that sounds very similar to Jimmy's first experience.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Everything that you just said, we can interchange some things.
Yeah.
Same experience. Identical. Wow. And I'm sitting here smiling going, yeah, man, because now we're going to take a break here.
Okay.
But that's your first time. And when 10 minutes later, when you're thinking about everything, what was it like to realize that paradigm shift, that where you were was real?
Yeah, totally, Jimmy. I mean, it was
crazy, isn't it?
Just takes my consciousness and goes like that, and gave me a whole new frame of understanding for what we're seeing in Egypt in particular, other cultures as well, but especially Egypt, and understanding. I mean, we have this idea that the Egyptian gods were walking around in physical flesh and blood form. Maybe they were, but more than likely it was a little sip or a little token, and there they are.
Bingo.
And now they're instructing us, they're teaching us, and they're bringing us along. I mean, it's beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
The second time, my first experience was your first experience, okay? Mm-hmm. And my guide was behind me, female voice. Okay, Jimmy, welcome. And all of that. I never turned around and looked at her. She was real cool though. But the second one, I'm guessing, I don't know for sure, but it was in Egypt. And let me tell you why. First off, she's behind me. Welcome back. I'm like, yo, right. This is great. She goes, okay, let's continue. I said, okay, let's go. And she goes, walk on this path and let's go across the bridge. I said, okay. So I go and I'm walking on this bridge over this river. Okay. It's at night. I see a city off in the distance. Can't really make it out. It's doing its thing, lit up.
Yeah.
And she goes, okay, let's go left. I go, okay. I'm just walking along. I'm just looking around like, wow, it's just amazing. And we're at a dock.
Wow.
And she says, let's get on the boat.
Wow.
And I turn and look, and it's a sailboat without a sail.
Oh man.
Ancient.
Yeah.
And it's big. So I walk up the ramp and I walk around the corner and I'm on the deck and I hold on to the rail, and dude, I felt it. Mm-hmm. It pulled away from the dock. I felt it. And we're moving. And we're cruising up the river. And so I'm looking I'm holding on. I'm looking at I'm watching everything go by. And then I'm turning my head and looking at the river, and it's like turning. And I'm looking forward. I'm looking this way. And now that I'm not going to get into all of the details of it, but it felt ancient.
Yeah.
It felt like, I don't want to say the Nile because I don't have it's not like I saw pyramids or we cruised by Kamambo or something. I'm not suggesting that because I didn't see that, but it felt that way. And the ship, the boat, which was big, felt really, really old. So I feel that was ancient Egypt.
Yeah, sounds like it. Absolutely. Especially with the boat connection.
It's mind-blowing, man.
Yeah.
Mind-blowing. All right, let's take our break right here.
Okay.
Our guest tonight, William Henry, the new book, The Psychedelic Jesus. We're going to continue the discussion right after this short break. William, stay right there. We'll be back in a short bit. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Stay with us.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel to get your alerts and access to over 2,000 videos. Click that subscribe button right now.
Contact in the Desert is back. Come see a legendary lineup of iconic speakers, including George Knapp, Jeremy Corbyn, Daniel Sheehan, George Noory, Whitley Strieber, Chris Ramsey, Dr. Diane Hennessy Powell, and many more. Join us in beautiful Indian Wells, California, May 28th, June 1st, as we explore infinite realms. Get your tickets now at contactinthedesert.com.
I'm heading back to the Midwest for the Contact Modalities Expo, May 1st through the 3rd, 2026, in Delavan, Wisconsin, at the Lake Resort. It is beautiful. This is a great conference right in the heart of the Midwest, where I'm from. See you there. Go to Contact Modalities Expo, that's XPO.com. I will be hosting and presenting once again at Contact in the Desert. That's May 28th through June 1st, 2026, the largest UFO conference in the world. Come and hang out with us June 23rd through July 1st. Tickets and everything else that you need is at contactinthedesert.com. Want to change your life? Want that paradigm shift? Then visit Peru with Brian Forster and myself for the Inca Celebration of the Sun, June 23rd through July 1st, 2026. A full 10 days of visiting the country, all of the amazing sights, and of course, the celebration of the winter solstice. It's all simple to do. Go to hiddenincatours.com. Come join us for the Monty Python Scotland Tour, August 1st through the 9th, 2026. This is a once-in-a-lifetime event where you get to go to the castles from Monty Python and the Holy Grail. August 1st through the 9th, 2026. Just visit HaleyARamsey.com. Watch Into the Vortex on Gaia TV. It's fade to black for the screen. Simple to do. Go to Gaia.com, search Jimmy Church, or click on the link below. Follow Fade to Black on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Get all of the show updates every single day. It's now called X, but who cares? Go to gchurchradio.com and become a Fadernaut. Get a membership. That's right. Everything is commercial free. You have access to downloads, and you get to call yourself a Fadernaut. River Moon Coffee, makers of the Fade to Black blend. Truly the best coffee on planet Earth. Just visit rivermoonwellness.com or their Amazon store. It's all simple to do. You can check out the Fade to Black blend, the Game Changer blend, or any of their Black Moon Wellness products. It's the only coffee I drink. It is the best, and it's Doc. Again, rivermoonwellness.com. All right. Welcome back, Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church tonight. William Henry is here. The new book, The Psychedelic Jesus, is out. Go and get yours. The links for everything are below and over on our website and, of course, social media. William Henry. And now let's go back to the idea of the kingdom of heaven. And I'm going to speak very directly about this. The Bible, I'm not a Bible scholar. I get all of my biblical information from you, William. But is this, I don't say that in jest, by the way, is this. Here is an image of the kingdom of heaven, that everything, right? It's a representation of, and it must exist throughout the cosmos the same way. And if that is the case, and we look at these other situations, right now we're talking about ayahuasca and other psychedelic herbs and things,
that that is the access to see this and to visit there. For those that haven't done that, they interpret and interpolate the images of the kingdom of heaven from scripture, right? But they haven't visited, and they don't know if it is indeed a real place. For those, the initiated, right, that have seen this, now know that there is something else out there that is beyond our 3D reality where we are on Earth, right?
Absolutely. And this was well demonstrated for 3,000 years before the time of Jesus and in the Essenes, where cultures in Greece, they called it the Eleusinian mysteries, which were practiced for over 1,000 years, where people would drink the sacred kykeon and they would emerge having had a full-blown experience where they return free of the fear of death. They've been transformed. And the Greek state actually sponsored it because it was a way for people to emerge living as a transformed person who lives by the golden rule. Their morals would change. They would realize, hey, we're all connected. There's such thing as karma. And it was a way of demonstrating to them the reality of the afterlife. And once you've overcome that fear of death, it brings a real chill factor to people. And so this is part of the backstory of why Jesus and the disciples would have utilized these substances. But another part of this too, when you're speaking about the kingdom of heaven, I have a whole chapter about the numerous comments that Jesus makes to the effect that he is not from this world. We are from this world. He says, I'm from another world. And in fact, in Hebrews, he says he's from another creation. And I map this onto current day simulation theory as an example of saying, hey, there's a multi-layered universe out there. And Jesus came from one of the higher layers. And part of his teaching was to awaken us to how we can connect with those higher layers. And one of the means, the modalities for doing that were these psychedelic substances.
And it's not just Egypt, is it? It's every culture.
Sumerian,
Peru, throughout Central America, North America, all of the indigenous cultures here,
exactly,
all spoke of the exact same thing.
That's right.
Now, you mentioned that female voice. So if we back up, I had the same thing, same experience. I have referenced her. I never saw her. I don't even know if I did. I don't know what I would see. All right, that's for another time. I will attempt to do that. I don't want to. I don't have a desire to. But I say guide, but thousands of years ago, is that an angel? Is that a spirit entity? Is it because it was kind? How do I say that? It wasn't threatening or scary.
Right.
When I describe this, and you went through the same experience, when you describe this to people, it can be a little terrifying because they don't really understand what's going on.
Right.
And it could be interpreted as being frightening. I have never been more comfortable. And so could that be, was angels used in place of what we say guides today?
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable hypothesis for sure, because they're connecting with these interdimensional beings and they're describing them as having these, at least in the New Testament, the angels of the Lord that accompany Jesus throughout his story are described as having bodies like lightning. And these are, like, you could think of those as guides. You can also call them the angels of the Lord, or even extraterrestrial beings who are manifesting with him. And so, we today can duplicate the experience that the ancients were having if we choose to. And this is the beauty of it. And I think this is why it's coming back into our world now, because we're in such a convergence point now, a moment of incredible transition that we can't even comprehend. And these substances are, I believe, provided to us now to assist in our transformation.
when I speak to some of our mutual friends, Danny Goler and Andrew Gallimore and Paul Hynek and others, that when they attempt to describe these spirit beings, these entities that you encounter in these other dimensions, they struggle with describing what they are seeing. Right, that it's energy, it's this, there's shape, but there's not, it's not. Yeah. And I just keep going back to, that's exactly what the scriptures say. And that's the same struggle in trying to describe, because maybe you're not supposed to describe or take this into sensationalism, right? Where you're do you understand what I'm saying? And the same struggles are there, and I don't want to look. It's like you remember anybody that looked at the Ark of the Covenant, right? Yeah. You know what happened, right? So, look away, right. Do you dig what I'm trying to? I struggle with it. Yeah,
and to me, that's part of the bias that was put in there. One reason why the Ark of the Covenant was substituted or was reduced down to just the container and the 10 Commandments is because originally it was the device or the symbol of a divine feminine counterpart to the Old Testament God Yahweh. It belonged to the feminine, and as part of the changing of the gods, there was a turning away from the feminine and into the patriarchy. And the patriarchy was always very hierarchical. And so if they possessed a sacred technology, a hallucinogen that enabled them to connect with the divine, they sure weren't going to share it with the common folk, because then there would be no need for the priesthood and the hierarchy. And this is in part why it was then later substituted by the Catholic Church. I mean, today's communion mass, where you have the bread symbolic of the body of Christ and the wine symbolic of the blood, is not the original sacrament. The original sacrament was very clearly hallucinogenic or psychedelic. It was the manna and the psychotropic wine. And you see this in Christian art. A good example is the art of Pentecost, when the disciples are in the upper room and the heavens open, and here comes this divine light, that referred to as the Holy Spirit. And sometimes in art, they'll literally will have psychedelic, especially psilocybin mushrooms, as part of the painting, telling us that this is what the disciples were doing. They eat the mushroom, it opens up a hole in space-time in their consciousness. Now they can perceive a light that is imperceptible to our ordinary consciousness. They call this the Holy Spirit. And the idea is that as we break out of this layer and connect with that higher layer, we bring in higher consciousness, a higher light, a healing light, a transformational light that then will ultimately transform our world.
You know who else did that? Akhenaten.
Oh yeah, exactly, Jimmy. Exactly that story. It's exactly that story.
Man, I'm tripping balls right now. You always open my mind.
So glad.
You always do. Well, here's the struggle that you are confronted with sharing this information, is taking the next step into hard science and research, and then trying to cross the Rubicon of spirituality and consciousness and science, and applying all of this. That's the great struggle that we have right now, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. And, part of the opportunity here really is religions are fading. Christianity is dwindling in its numbers, except in South America. Judaism, Islam, they're not experience-based. And people need the experience today. And I think that the psychedelic route is not only going to be beneficial for healing soldiers with PTSD and individuals overcoming trauma and healing past wounds and this sort of thing, but also ultimately it's going to return as a sacred sacrament within the church. And that will bring people back into the church. When you see that there's a whole nother layer of the Jesus story, the psychedelic Christ, as I call him, that is gone undetected, but has been known about, passed along through artwork and various references, that it's going to bring a revival, not just in faith, but especially in consciousness. People are seeking this kind of transformational experience right now, especially like with the rise of AI and transhumanism. We're looking at, how do we become better people? How do we rise in the face of this transition that we're in the middle of right now?
I don't know if it's necessarily philosophy or philosophical to suggest this, but and certainly philosophers have suggested this, but back in the day, as we all know, if you were a philosopher, you were a scientist, and you were also a doctor, and you were the smartest dude in the village, right? You were all of those things. Today, it's completely separated. This is my take, William. I want your answer. If you are going to get a degree in physics and you're going to pursue your PhD, you have to do DMT.
Yeah, absolutely. No question, because it answers so much, and it gives you a direct experience of a world that is interpenetrating our own world. Call it the quantum realm, whatever term you want to apply to it. Yeah, it's like, yeah, absolutely mandatory. And politicians should all have.
Every elected official, you have to have a DMT card. You have to show it. I totally agree with that. If you are going to, not politicians, but if you are going to pursue an academic career into quantum, into multi-world, interdimensionality, entanglement, all of the parallel worlds, parallel qubits, right? If you're going to jump into all of that, you need to experience it for yourself.
Absolutely.
And that will change your theories and your idea building completely, because now you're chasing something that you've experienced.
Exactly. Now you're part of it, rather than on the outside knocking on the door, seeing if you can come in. You're in.
It would be a brave new world. Remember when we were kids? Okay, when we were kids, you and I. Half of our audience right now isn't going to understand what I'm about to say, but when William and I were kids,
right,
we'd sit around in the 70s listening to Foghat records or whatever. Yeah, you get it. And smoke, and you're puffing away. And one day we're going to be the senators. We're going to be in Congress. We're going to write the laws, and one day pot's going to be legal, and everything's going to change. This was the discussion that we had in school growing up, right? That was well, now we're here, and we still haven't gotten to that point. It's really, really strange how the establishment is still pushing back.
Yeah, it's the last vestiges of that, of the controlling of consciousness and trying to direct it. And I think it's irrepressible right now. And again, largely due to the rise of AI and transhumanism. I've long said that the antidote to artificial intelligence is to raise our ascension intelligence. We've got to be thinking more like the angels, which is totally quantum thinking and understanding the multidimensionality of our existence and thinking outside the box. And that's why these substances are so important in our world right now. Even Sam Altman, who creator of ChatGPT, OpenAI, paraphrasing, thinks there should be an MDMA stand on every corner in America. And what he means by that is he understands that it's a heart opener. It frees us of old traumas and old guilt and shame and all these things that limit us as people that are really false. They're just ideas. They're perceptions that don't hold up to reality, that can in fact vanish in a carefully guided experience with some of these substances. And people are doing it all the time. I talked with a Navy SEAL the other day who had an experience of a session with MDMA and ketamine. And he, told how, he's a trained killer. He's trained to go out and defend us, to put his life on the line. And he's seen unimaginable things. And in his experience, he was able to take all of the trauma that he ever experienced, all of the horrific things that he saw, and he gathered them in sort of like a balloon in his consciousness. And then all of a sudden, all of that fear, all of that shame, guilt, whatever, just went and went away. And it was like a weight lifting off of him. And you think about that. If that can do that for a Navy SEAL, what can it do for an ordinary person that's dragging along stuff that is no longer necessary?
The earth. What can it do for the earth?
Yeah.
That's a true, if we're going to mention, and we often do, the global awakening.
Yeah.
Well, that's exactly what you're talking about. Imagine that on a global scale.
Right.
What an amazing, that would be a global awakening, wouldn't it?
Oh, truly. And it would represent a tremendous advance forward in terms of our healing. And many do think that these molecules are emergent properties of the earth. Others think that they literally come from other worlds, from space. And what it does is it gives you reverence. It returns the sacred in your daily experience. It changes you. You are not the same person you were before that experience. You have more compassion. You have more kindness, more love, more understanding for people and what they're going through. But you also have a glimpse of what's possible as well. And this is why I like to say it's like we need a collective dose every day, every year, along with Christmas or New Year's. We have a dose day where everybody gets to partake in some sort of substance, psychedelic substance, that helps them to connect with themselves, with their families, their loved ones, and everything beyond.
That's what we talked about in my sophomore year in high school. That's it right there. Listening to Foghat.
Listening to Foghat.
Listening to Foghat. The idea for this, though, the overarching situation here is that we're actually talking about consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. That's the key word here. Consciousness. Let's dive into this a little bit deeper. What's your definition? And everybody, it doesn't matter if it's the Dalai Lama or me or you, we're all going to have our own idea for this. But what's your definition of consciousness?
Consciousness is all that is, really. I believe in the pantheistic universe, the panpsychic universe. Everything is alive. I mean, this cup is not alive, but all the atoms that make it up are alive and conscious. There's an intelligence here. And that's what we're talking about here, is recognizing the interconnectedness of all things. And in fact, that everything is alive with an element of consciousness.
So if that's the case, then it is okay. Well, hold on a minute. Is it local or non-local?
I think it's non-local. I think it's everywhere. It's in everything. It's everywhere.
Okay, let's stay on this for a second. I'm always learning. I want somebody else's take on this. I struggle with that idea.
Okay.
Right. I know, I get it, right? This guitar pick, and by the way, William's got cooler guitars than I do, everybody. I just want to, every time I post a picture, I get a William comes back with, check this out, man. Look what I got. All right. So anyway, this guitar pick is made of the same stuff that you are.
Right.
Right. I totally get that.
Yeah.
But does consciousness enter into this at the particle level? I struggle with that. I do. But on the other hand, because I think it's non-local and it finds us and we move on. But then I'm a paradox, William, because if you get mad at your car
mm-hmm.
and you kick it,
yeah,
and the next day you're late for work and it doesn't start, well, you got what you asked for. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So is the car conscious? So now I am contradicting myself.
Yeah.
But that's the part where I struggle with. I think that dark energy
mm-hmm.
that is pushing the universe apart is consciousness.
Yeah, I think so too.
I don't think it's dark energy.
And part of the joy, in a way, of being incarnate in a human body is being able to tune out all that is in that consciousness and have the illusion that this desk is solid, that it's real. When it's not, we're just enjoying this layer of creation where we think all this is manifest, but it's really brought to life in our imagination by our brains.
Stephen Hawking famously struggled with, does information survive a black hole? Now, you can take information and interject or change things out. You could say thought, you could say data, you could say dreams, you could say memories, consciousness, right? That once it enters that, and so today there's a general agreement in the worlds of science that it survives a black hole. Now, isn't that interesting in that it's not necessarily tied to mass or matter, right? That thought and thinking is forever.
Yeah. That's such a powerful concept, Jimmy. And I think about that in terms of transhumanism. I used to really be a serious rock thrower against the big tech giants and transhuman technology. Now I'm much more accepting of it. And because I'm looking at it more from the soul perspective, and the belief that, or the idea is that the soul can move through these various layers of creation and survive. And it's the same kind of idea. Can consciousness or data go through a black hole and reemerge on the other end? And I believe that it can. I mean, it's a belief. You can call it a religion if you want, but it's something that's very intriguing to me right now. And I think very important for us to consider, because we have the scientific materialist view that says, do not under any circumstances alter the human form. If we alter the human body, we lose our humanity. And I understand that position. I held that for 15 years or more. But now I'm over on more of a parallel pillar saying, well, first of all, the body's meant to be temporary from the soul's perspective, and it's meant to be transformed. I mean, every religious and spiritual tradition of the past 5,000 years has said that our body is designed to be transformed. It's meant to become something else. And the soul can utilize this body as a temporary vehicle, as an avatar, and perhaps it can embody a robotic type of an avatar, as well as it can a flesh and blood one.
Isn't that interesting? Let me ask you this. Let's go back to DMT for a second.
Sure.
Did you ever look at yourself? Did you try to look at your hands or your feet or anything?
I looked at my partner, Julie, and she had a face of a cat. And
I did the same thing. And I can't say who I was with. I was with a couple of actors. I'm just going to say that award-winning, big-time stuff, right?
Cool.
You know what happened to them? Every other time I always had a mask on or my eyes were closed. I looked at them and they sprouted in front of me white feathers for hair.
Wow.
in an Elvis coif.
Oh my God.
With a curl and white. And I just enjoyed the moment. And they turned and looked at me, and I didn't laugh or anything. It's because it was real, by the way. It was not like, how do I say this? Like with Julie, it's not a Disney cartoon thing.
Right.
No, you saw a cat, didn't you?
Totally. Yeah.
It's crazy.
Totally. I understood all the Egyptian depictions of Sekhmet, who's portrayed as the human body, but the face of a cat. And they were so much more beautiful in my experience than what you can see.
Stay close to the mic, William.
Oh, sorry. These cat people were so much more beautiful than anything I had seen on the temple walls in Egypt or in depictions. It was just stunning. And I knew that they were real as I'm speaking to you and you're real to me. Same kind of experience, just so transformative.
Which takes me to the avatar thought.
Mm-hmm.
You are making me think, go back and try to process this and analyze. There's so much to process. I'm still processing everything that I've done, but I never looked at my physical self.
Mm-hmm.
I did when my eyes were open. I looked at my, oh, by the way, okay, all right, I'm going to say this. This is a fun part. I did 7 hits in a row.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
Okay, all right. And as I'm looking, my eyes are open. My arm turns into diamonds.
Wow.
Like this, like a suit of armor, right? And I've got these diamond arms and hands. Then I pulled the mask down and did my thing. But anyway, during that, when my eyes are closed and I'm covered, I never looked at my physical self. I never looked down to see. I knew I was traveling, right? I knew I was walking, but I never looked. No, I'm an avatar. Am I making any sense? And I was okay with it.
Yeah. This is the part of the whole awakening that is so important in these experiences, to recognize that there's a ghost in the machine, the soul. And yeah, this is just an avatar. This is not me. That your physical form at this moment is not you. It's your representation of you, your avatar. And to begin to think on those levels is so profound, because it connects us to all these other dimensions, these other beings, and the possibilities that they represent as well. And that's what's so exciting to me. And once again, to go back into the Christian history and find the stories that represent this same experience, and to say, okay, we can recreate this today. We can have this today. We deserve this today. That's where we're at right now, is saying yes to these substances and molecules, and primarily getting back to this for the healing that they can provide. I mean, this is what is most needed in our world right now.
Why does the church, all of them, suppress this though?
I think
I struggle with that. I mean, why suppress it?
Well, they don't want people having access to it, because then why do you need the priesthood? I mean, why do you need the church? If you can have a direct experience on your own,
they have to have secrets.
They have to have secrets, right? And so they withheld it. They partake in it perhaps for themselves, but they withhold it from the masses, and just dangle the promise that you one day will be able to meet Christ or see the kingdom or this or that. But if you could go on an Easter Sunday or another special holiday and have the experience that we're talking about, that's a whole other idea here. It's no longer religion. It's not theology. It's no longer talking about God. It's talking to God. It's the divine work. They call that theurgy. And this is the category that these substances fall into. And this has always been the divide, where the church, traditional church, wants to just talk about God, talk about religion, talk about this, but you never truly experience. Some do, some can, through their faith, through their belief, through chanting, meditation, breath work, singing. You can trigger these experiences spontaneously, and it does happen to people. But you can also take the Concord to that higher realm, and that's what these substances are. They're a specific method, a technology, a sacred technology used for thousands of years that can unlock these aspects of our consciousness.
Now, here, let's have fun for a second, because I think about this a lot. It's my twisted mind. This is exactly what oracles were in every culture.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. The gaseous vapors were probably hallucinogenic. I mean, all of these instances, you look into these stories, this is why the priestesses wore laurel wreaths, because the laurel has acacia in it. And they're telling us what's happening in these instances without beating us over the head over it. It's meant to be discovered. It's almost like you're called to the experience. I felt called to the experience. I needed what these substances could provide to me on many different levels. And so I was called, and I answered that call. And I'm very grateful that I did.
The oracles, Egypt had theirs, right? Out there in the far desert. Alexander the Great famously traveled out there and met with the oracles, but every culture's got them where they have experienced the divine and other dimensions and other worlds, and they go there for answers, like we do today. But they have those answers. So you go to them with questions, and they've had those experiences that you haven't, but they will answer your questions from their experiences. And every culture had them. Very mysterious, right? All those oracles were mysterious.
And often those oracles were the feminine priestesses. They're the priestesses. Yes. And then the patriarchy comes in and limits it and takes it away.
Let's see here. What's this question? Hold on. Does Jimmy or William fear being added? Okay, I'm not going there, Joe. I'm not going there, Joe. Okay. Here. This has been blowing up my phone lately too, as well. This list of scientists and things that have disappeared and so forth that everybody's talking about right now. And now the list is up to 13. There's another one that's been added today. It's all over the media. The White House is talking about it. The FBI is involved and is investigating it. But I'm getting the same comments. They're like, okay, man, what about you, Church? Are you nervous? You know? And somebody just asked, is William concerned about this too with his research? But what do you make of, just briefly, it's not the subject of the show, do you think that there, at some point, this is going to move beyond coincidence with all of these missing scientists, NASA, right? Research scientists, physicists, the search for alien life with NASA and the James Webb Space Telescope. It's like it's getting a little nuts. Do you think that it will go beyond coincidence and that there could be something else going on here?
It's possible. I mean, but at the same time, I mean, people have a propensity. They love a story like that. They love to look for clues and holes in stories and this sort of thing. And it becomes a big distraction in a way, because again, we are dealing with human lives, and, you know, they put Nick in that category, and I know Nick's story, and it doesn't fit that narrative. Right. And so I'm sure this is nasty business that we're involved with right now. There is very definitely not just a war on consciousness. There is a war over disclosure that is unfolding right now. So it could well be that some of these people are being murdered or disappeared. But I don't know. To me, it's just a distraction.
Okay, we'll move on. It's fun to think about.
Yeah. Exactly.
To go down there. I love a rabbit hole, man.
I know. That's what I'm saying.
I love a good rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Like this next question. Okay, I've got a few shamans that are friends that I visit. I'm going to be seeing one of my favorite shamans, Wilcock, in Peru shortly. He's amazing. Are you ready? Was Mary Magdalene a shaman? Was she distributing and giving the advice before, right? Was she sitting through the ceremony to make sure that everybody was okay? Was she a shaman?
They called her a miraphor. They were experts in herbs and plants and plant medicine. They were the ones
oils, anointing. Yeah.
They're the ones making all the psychedelic brews, the psychedelic oils. Jesus, he's like, no, I'm not doing this. Of course not. It was his chief apostle, Mary Magdalene, that was responsible for that. And the other disciples that spoke of it. Even his brother James spoke of this oil of joy that had psychotropic properties. So very definitely. And Mary Magdalene was, as I talk about in the book, she was part of a lineage that goes back to Egypt, where these priestesses specifically trained in how to create these potions, elixirs, brews, and so forth, and especially the oils.
So she had her purse, right? Showed up, set the jars out.
Exactly.
And wow.
Yeah, exactly. And there's no difference between what Isis was doing with Osiris and what Mary Magdalene did with Jesus. It's just part of the program.
Wow, see, the church would suppress something like that.
Oh, for sure. I mean, that's part of the whole changing of the gods again, where take out the original sacrament, label Mary Magdalene a prostitute, take away the empowerment of the divine feminine who have all of this knowledge, and then call them witches and so forth. And yeah, it's the pharmacratic inquisition is another name for what they talk about in terms of the suppression of this knowledge of these sacred substances. And again, it's all about control.
The ideas, and this goes all the way back to even Göbekli Tepe, where you and I have talked over and over again about this, but it's becoming more visible to me. And that's the purses, right? The little handbags.
Yeah.
We just, I just showed you the little dude on the Narmer pallet, right?
Right.
These handbags from Göbekli Tepe, all over Central and South America, all over Egypt, all over Mesopotamia.
Yeah.
I don't think that there is a culture without them. Could they be, I speculate, could it be DNA? Could it be the nuclear codes? Could it be this? Could it be, I don't, it's just information. Can it be data? Or are they carrying around the keys?
Yeah, well, you notice in many of those scenes, they're harvesting something from a tree. Sometimes it's a pine cone. Sometimes it's something else from the tree that they're then putting in that bag. So it's an organic substance that's being placed in that bag, whatever it is. There was a scholar in the 30s, Geo Windegarden, who wrote a book called The Ascension of the Prophet in the Heavenly Book. And he specifically says, like in the story of Enoch, that there's tablets that are placed in those handbags. And that makes sense. That's data, right? But then you also learn later through the Essenes and work done on the Dead Sea Scrolls that the tablets or the stones that they refer to as another name for the psychedelic mushroom. So, okay, maybe they're putting some sort of a psychedelic substance in those bags, and then it represents their activation of their consciousness.
Recipes. I asked my shaman in Peru. I go, okay, man. I haven't done ayahuasca, by the way. I haven't done it. I don't have the time to invest to show it the respect that it needs, right?
Yeah.
So
it's a call that's answered for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. But I asked my shaman, I said, okay, I find it difficult to understand how a couple of herbs and roots were combined, and only those combined out of the millions of plants, right? So, and the combinations, therefore, right? And somehow, I said, how? And he goes, man, it's been this way since the beginning.
Yeah.
And it was given to us from them.
Yeah. I totally go with that. Totally.
And so do I.
Yeah. I mean, they really are the keys to the kingdom. There's no question about that. And as we recognize that, we'll retrieve this knowledge, this sacred technology, if you will, and it will change our society immensely for the better.
Now, I don't know if you remember, but I just want to back up and I want to tie some of this together. You and I, the original, one of the first conversations that we had about the light body and the all colors, right? The light body. That was probably 10 years ago. You know, am I right? Does that feel right to you? It's about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And your concepts of this were solid. Your ideas about this and your theories and the way that you presented it was always solid. But now things have come full circle. And now if you look back to the light body ideas and the books that you wrote about this are starting to get confirmed for you personally, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that has been a really beautiful benefit of the psychedelic journeys that I've had is being able to perceive that light body and also understand. There's a moment in two moments in the book of Revelation. John the Revelator encounters a rainbow angel, one of these rainbow light body beings. And the rainbow angel hands him a book, and John eats the book, and he says it tastes like honey, but then it's bitter in his stomach. Well, that's exactly the experience people report with psilocybin mushrooms. And after that moment, John then has his full-blown Book of Revelation experience. And later, he says that if you want to enter the New Jerusalem, another name for the kingdom of heaven, you first have to wash your robe. And what he's referring to is the light body. He's washing your robe of light. And that is one of the real benefits of these psychedelic sacraments, is that we all got stuff that gets glammed onto us, guilt, shame, fear, all of those kinds of things. And how are we going to free ourselves from those? How are we going to wash our robe of light, get rid of that stuff? And that's what these substances are designed to do. That's what, in part, they're for.
Didn't John, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't John, wasn't he like in prison? He was in a room, right? When he wrote all of that, he was by himself.
Yeah, he was in a cave.
He was in a cave.
The island of Patmos. Yeah.
Now, doesn't that all make sense? Doesn't it?
Totally. Exactly. He's in the cave, representative of the cave of the mind or consciousness, or going to a set apart place to have this experience, going into the underworld.
I always pictured him writing this, like looking out and all of this coming to him from somewhere, and putting it down, because, man, it was some of the best science fiction ever written.
Yeah,
right?
for sure. It began with that edible. The rainbow angel appeared to him and said, "Here, eat this," down the hatch, and all of a sudden he has this full-blown experience.
It was a real experience.
It was a real experience. Absolutely.
That's the whole key here, is that now through this is controversial, but I'm just going to say this. I understand the therapeutic things and PTSD, and maybe you want to quit smoking, whatever it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whatever, I understand that. But can the journey through a therapeutic relationship with all of this, that you are then introduced to the kingdom of heaven or another dimension, and that is a byproduct of a health reason and a health benefit for this mental stability, whatever it may be, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But then you start to see and understand what the ancients and scripture has been talking about for thousands of years.
Right. And this is part of the reason I wrote the book, Jimmy, because when I moved to Phoenix and I got involved with there's a very large plant medicine community here in Phoenix, hundreds of doctors and professionals and practitioners. Okay. And I would talk with them, and they were having these experiences where they're seeing Egyptian gods. They're seeing light beings, but they don't know what they are or who they are. And the way I characterized it, it's like some of them might have been having DMT experiences, or psilocybin or MDMA or LSD. And this is like the 6-pack, right? And what they didn't have was the plastic thingy that could hold the 6-pack together. The plastic thingy is the context, the historical context, the understanding that these light beings that you're seeing in our present experience are the very same beings that they were seeing 3,000 years ago. And you're part of this lineage of human experience that is very real and very important too. And so these are people that have no knowledge of any of these. I had a friend, a Jewish fellow, who took a puff of DMT. He goes into a realm, he sees a laboratory. He says, he gets out of the experience. He says, "Yeah, I saw this guy. He looked like an Egyptian god. He had this long beak, and he's trying to get me to come into his laboratory." And I go and get this. I've got this statue of Thoth right up here on the shelf. And I go and get that. And I said, "You look like this?" He goes, "Yeah, that's exactly who it was." And it's like, wow. Okay.
Wow. Yeah.
Example of what I'm saying is, you have all these. There's now, Canadian Psychedelic Association told me 2 years ago, there's now over 1,000 ayahuasqueros in America. This is people that serve ayahuasca. 10 years ago, there were maybe 10.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Now there's 1,000. So if you figure on any given weekend, each one of those ayahuasqueros is seeing, let's say, 4 people. That sounds like there's 4,000 or 5,000 people in America every weekend having this experience. Now you extrapolate that into other substances and you're realizing just how big a movement this actually is. It's like a tsunami that's rising and people are having these experiences, but they don't always have the context for it or the understanding. You've been to Egypt. You knew you were having an Egyptian experience. Someone else might struggle with that and they would go into that realm, but not know where they're at. And part of what I'm seeing is one of my services is to show this community that this experience is well documented in history and it's tremendously beneficial.
Are you going to be in Luxor for Totality next year?
I am still undecided. I've been offered an opportunity to do that, and I just can't decide.
Okay. Well, I'm doing it with Sarah. So that trip is booked, but I know that you're going to be there. And how many of our friends are going to be there? And at that circle a date on the calendar like that, right?
Right.
Totality over Luxor, and that we get to go and have that experience together. So I've already planted it in my head that you and I were going to be there.
Oh, cool.
You and I just mentioned this somewhere. I know I'm trying to think of the moment in time. I know it was in Sedona. I don't know if it was privately or if it was on stage, but you said to me, we were crossing a street in Beverly Hills in Bel Air, and you turned to me and you go, "Church, man, you got to come to Egypt with me." You remember when we were crossing Sunset Boulevard?
Right.
And we were on our way to a restaurant and we had a whole conversation about how important it is not only to go to Egypt, but to have that spiritual moment that only you will have. And when it happens, you will know it. You can't plan it. It's just going to happen.
Right.
And you gave me that advice and it happened to me. It
so
happened
happy.
to me twice. Yeah.
So happy.
Yeah.
So happy.
Yeah.
I'm celebrating. I just celebrated this is my 20th anniversary of doing Egypt tours with Abercrombie and Kent. And we just couldn't believe it. Same team for 20 years. Just incredible. Absolutely incredible. It was such a blessing and a gift.
In the time that we have left, what do you have a special, I mean, that you don't have to talk about it or anything, but where in Egypt that you really look forward to, that's your spot? Do you have one?
Oh man, there's many of them. It's usually along the Nile, might be on the boat. I charter the Sunboat 3, which is this amazing Nile.
Dude, I'm
yacht.
so jealous about that boat. Most of the boats on the Nile, you don't want to step aboard. Hey, you don't. You look at it and you go, no, I'll pass. Yours, dude.
Yeah, it's something else. I'm so just privileged and honored to be, again, having a 20-year relationship with Abercrombie and Kent and being able to charter their boat. Harvard, Yale, Met, Stanford, they all get it, and I get it. I'm the only guy that's allowed to do groups like that, and it's really wonderful. And I looked at it just the other day when I was there 2 weeks ago with a group and just stood there for 10 minutes as we were leaving, just thinking, God, how did I know this boat was going to sail into my life 20 years ago? And I'd take 1,000 people over the years onto this boat, and just giving it so much gratitude and thanks for the experiences.
For me, though, I had a crazy spiritual thing that happened in Abydos. I've talked to you about this before, in the back, that the Pharaonic lake that was underground. That was pretty crazy. I called you immediately and went, what the hell? And so there was that. But the experiences, let's make it plural, at Dendara. Dendara is crazy powerful.
It is. Yeah.
Crazy. I mean, how many people do you see enter that temple and leave in tears?
No, I know. There's such a beautiful frequency or vibration there. We were there on Easter this year, and that was extra special to connect with the divine feminine energies there and just think about their lineage and how it worked its way into the Christian tradition. It's such a spectacular place.
Yeah, and people look, well, no, you do your own thing when you go there.
Yeah.
But when you do go, look up. Look up a lot.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, the people that do eventually look up don't look back down.
That's for sure, man.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's column at just follow the story.
I know.
Yeah, but,
I was just going to say one of my favorite pictures was the first time I went to Egypt. I'm laying on my back on the ground at Dendera taking pictures of that ceiling. And I just love that.
yeah, I shot a video from the beginning, right? Everybody, when you enter the temple and you go through to the left back, that's the start of the story.
Mhm.
I walked and videoed the entire ceiling all the way to followed everything all the way through to the end. One continuous shot.
Oh man, that's real treasure right there. Yeah.
Incredible. That's our signal.
That's a
William Henry, you're the best. When am I going to see you next? What's going on?
Oh my gosh, let's see. I don't know. Maybe later this summer somewhere, hopefully.
Contact in the Desert? Are you going?
No, I'm not going to be there this year. No. Maybe one of Suzanne's events in San Diego.
Oh, in September. I'll see you there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll see you there.
Okay.
Enjoy Phoenix, my friend. You're the best. Give my best to Julie, and I'll speak to you soon. Thank you, William.
God bless. Thank you.
The best. William Henry. That perfect way to end the week. We celebrated all this week, 2,300 shows. Tonight was 2302 with William Henry. The new book is out, The Psychedelic Jesus. You can head to Amazon, go to William's website. The links for that are below on social media and over on our website. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight is my Friday. It's your Thursday. It's my Friday. I've got a very, very busy weekend in front of me. And I just want everybody to enjoy yours. Be safe. And I'll see you right back here on Monday. But for now, all I've got is Go Beckley Teppy. Fade to Black is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee Newman, and Michelle Freed. Special thanks to Bill, John, Dex, Jessica, Dennis, and Kevin. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music by Doug Aldrich. Intro, Space Boy. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2024 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Go Beckley Teppy.